Hey y'all, it's Mary Hyatt, and I'm so excited you're here for this month's topic, which is all about success. If you are a business owner, entrepreneur, network marketer, or freelancer, you won't want to miss this month's conversation around success mindset and practical tips to make sure you stay thriving. I'm going to be sharing my business and selling secrets that have led me to build my 3 multi-six-figure businesses. So stay right here and let's hop into it.
Welcome to the Living Fully Alive podcast with Mary Hyatt, here to help you find your authentic voice, learn how to love yourself, and embrace your life. And now, your host, life and mindset coach, body love advocate, and doTERRA Presidential Diamond, Mary Hyatt.
Hey y'all, it's Mary, and I am so just thrilled to be with you on another week's episode in our month's topic of success, because I have brought on another special guest this month. I don't typically do that. I usually have one special guest in a month, and I decided, you know what? I have so many brilliant, amazing friends who are successful and successful in different ways that I am successful, and people that have specifically helped me along my journey of becoming the success that I am. And I would love for you guys to hear from those people. And so I brought on my dear friend and somebody who I've actually worked with, Justin Wise. And let me tell you a little bit about Justin. So Justin helps driven online entrepreneurs attract attention, secure right fit clients, and grow profits through constant experimentation. He's spoken to thousands about marketing and business building at conferences such as Infusionsoft's Icon Conference and the Digital Media Summit. Justin has consulted with over 200 plus businesses, nonprofit organizations, and countless coaches, consultants, and service providers. He lives in Des Moines, Iowa. Yes, by choice, y'all. With his wife, Kerry, and their 3 children. Join the experiment at justinwise.net. So tune in for Justin and I's amazing conversation about his journey through success and how to really look at your online presence and how you're communicating with your customers and with your clients in a really fresh new way that gives space for experimentation, gives space for having some strong boundaries. And I think you're going to get some amazing nuggets out of my talk with Justin. So without further ado, here is my interview with Justin Wise. Hey y'all, it is Mary, and this is the 3rd episode of our month's topic, which is centered all around success. And y'all know I freaking love talking about success, about business, about leadership, about mindset, about money. Let's not forget money. Oh, how I love money. And we are in for a treat today. I have brought on one of my dear friends who I've actually known for a really long time. Justin, we'll talk about that in a second because I'll have to remember how long it's been. But Justin is, as you heard, just so amazing at what he does. But what I loved about him personally is he has helped me create my first ever course, Babe Redefined, which was all about making peace with your body and making peace around food. And Justin, man, we were in my house for it was a good solid 8 or 9 hours fleshing that course out module by module. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we went through the entire thing and got to the very end and decided to do it all over again.
That happens, right?
Oh man, but you need that. It's like you had to get it out and then realize that this isn't what you want and then recreate it. And then you flew in again to Nashville when I was recording all the videos. And so we got some good quality time together. And I have been so insanely grateful for your mind. I was just telling you before that I have sent so many people your social media posts because you have a way. One of the things I think you're so gifted at is you have a way of writing that is so compelling and so pointed. It's like your emails are the emails out of all the emails that people send out that I actually open and read because you have content that really matters and it's valuable. And so I'm just so excited to be on the show with you today. So, welcome, Justin Wise.
Yeah, let's do it.
Whoop whoop! I feel like we need the what is that club? Wah 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 wah! Justin Wise.
Hey, oh yeah, the horn, the
The horn.
Ibiza horn.
Oh my gosh! Remember those days, clubs when we saw
Oh
people?
man, just the tight black pants, the sparkly top.
Oh
Man, oh man.
man,
Well,
I'm
that was
trying
what
to visualize you in a sparkly top.
no. Sorry, I should preface. That's what when I was in college, that was the outfits for the guys would always go looking like complete slobs,
Totally.
and the ladies would always wear the tight black pants, sparkly tops.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same. Oh man. So first off, I mean, obviously we're recording this during lockdown, during COVID, but I think that what we're going to talk about today is going to be useful for anyone who is running a business, who is an entrepreneur. I mean, you specialize with people who are running their own businesses, whether it's online, whether it, would be a church. Kind of tell me about a little bit of your journey, how you got into where you are today. I know it has been quite the journey. And
Yeah.
so let's bring everybody up to speed. Who are you? What have you been doing? And what's new right now?
My context, I just wrote something the other day where I said it's taken me a decade, but I finally figured out what I'm good at. And what I wrote afterwards was basically taking complex ideas, complex problems, and boiling them down into a simple statement or a simple methodology or a simple framework. So taking complex and making it simple.
Yep.
And the reason why it's taken me so long is because, as I trace back to, and, I pick a decade because that's essentially when I think to myself, okay, this is when I became an adult.
Right.
So my first son was born. I really started having to look at, okay, what am I going to be doing like for real in my life? And, prior to that time, I had, graduated college and bounced around to different gigs and, did some side hustles here and there, like I'm sure many people listening. But then I found myself working in a church and never thought growing up that would be something that I would do. But, just felt after college that was kind of like my best option.
Yeah.
If I'm being completely honest. But I ended up actually really enjoying the work. And, as I look back on that time, I realized the reason why I enjoyed it is because you have this complex topic and God.
Couldn't be more broad.
Yeah, right. Or, more broadly speaking, spirituality, I think in general, and our spirits, and then bringing that into the everyday lives of the people in our church. And part of that included, doing the weddings and the funerals and the baptisms, but I was also teaching on the weekends. And so I found myself teaching and speaking in front of people and really started to enjoy that. And then I got into digital marketing. Now, we didn't call it that at the time, but that's what it was. And I saw even more in a more kind of advanced way, like you can take this really complex idea, distill it down into these little bite-sized fragments, in the form of videos and messages and Instagram wasn't around back then, but, Facebook posts and tweets, and communicate with people and have this message connect on multiple different levels with people. That was really fascinating to me. So long story short, left the church right after I graduated from seminary.
Nice. Good timing.
Was a big old thumb in the eye to the folks, at the SEM, but I had a great experience at Bethel. I could tell like, hey, this isn't what I want to do with my life. And so I launched this business, Think Digital, and I'll speed it up. But really what I did was take the concepts of what I learned on the digital side at the church, because I always gloss over this, but the church I worked at was, and it still is, the largest Lutheran church in the country here in the US.
Wow.
So I had real-time feedback. Stuff moved very quickly. and saw what worked and what didn't. So I took those concepts and applied them to, certainly other churches and ministries. But what really captured my interest was the marketplace, was small businesses, and started working with small businesses. And long story short, created courses and started consulting and launched an agency. And so now what we do is, certainly we have a large portion of our business is tied up with the agency where we do the things for people. But a lot of it now is also spent working with amazing people like you, working with other entrepreneurs, and really looking at, okay, 99% of the time, the people we work with, they're already successful and they want to hit that next level of success.
Yeah.
But they hit roadblocks oftentimes, primarily around like scale. So how do I scale this message, or how do I scale my time? Pricing is a big one, pricing and packaging. Many people in the service industry are under pricing their services.
Yes.
And
Oh,
so
I see that all the time.
it's everywhere. It's like pervasive. And some of it absolutely ties back to, I know, the stuff that you work on so well and help people with, which is really understanding their value. And then there's another part too, where folks just honestly don't know how to tease out their value.
Right.
And put a price tag on it. So one part is seeing the value. The other part is, okay, now that I see it, how do I price this? And that's more the side that we help with. And then a lot of times folks run into like their time. So especially with service providers too, they sell off large chunks of their time. And then they reach a point where they can't work more and they can't price their services higher because they just price themselves out of the market. And so we help find ways, much like we did with you, to say, okay, what do you know? What do you understand? What is your process? How do we build it into a digital product?
Yeah.
And scale your business that way. So that's a long answer to the question.
No, I'm so glad you took the time, because it is such a fascinating journey to go from church land to digital marketing, working with entrepreneurs who have nothing to do with the faith world, and seeing the principles be the same, seeing what was carried over from what you would learn that's still applicable to any business anywhere, trying to create multiple streams of income, creating creative ways of generating new leads. And I think about the people that I know that are listening. I mean, right now, online is where it's at. I mean, really right now is where it's at, because we literally can't go into stores. But just in general, I mean, our world has moved to the online space. And it's interesting. One of the words that I love that you use often is experimentation. And I think about entrepreneurs, and what we have to do is consistently and often sort of reinvent how we are communicating with our audience, whether that's video, whether that's Insta story, whether that is language in an email. And I feel like one of the things that you do so well, and you've given yourself permission to do, is almost like throw the spaghetti noodles on the wall and see what sticks. And I think that for a lot of people, they're really afraid to do that. They want to get it all right, have it all planned, make sure that it all makes sense before they launch anything, before they even set up an Instagram account, before they publish a website. So for people who are just getting started, Justin, like literally at the beginning of their entrepreneurial journey, I would love to hear a little bit of wisdom of that methodology for yourself of experimentation, and why that's so important for people to do at the beginning and maybe even throughout their journey as an entrepreneur.
This boils down to, at least in my experience in working with clients, it boils down to that anxiety or that fear or the hesitation that we can feel in putting ourselves out there on these platforms, putting our messaging, our message out there, putting our business out there, can feel so daunting. And it's not, in my experience, it's not what most people think. That fear and anxiety doesn't necessarily come from, oh, hey, I'm on this platform that I know nothing about. That's oftentimes what people will say.
Right.
They will say, oh, well, I don't know email, or I don't know Instagram, or I don't know anything about, you twit face or whatever it is. And So there's apprehension there, which makes sense. But the underlying cause, the root cause in my experience has been a lack of defining a process or a business system or a core structure. That's what I call it, a structure. And it's really a structure. What that comes down to is what we did when we built that course. It was just saying, okay, Mary, you have this way of doing your business that sits inside of your head, and you are accessing this at all points of the day. When you're working with clients, when you're creating content, it's there. It's so pervasive to you. It's so inbuilt that you don't even realize it's a process.
Right.
You don't even realize it's a grid that you're using to grow your business and to help your clients. And so that's why we spent so much time really defining that. And now that you have it, you can use it in a million different ways.
Yep.
And what I've found is a lot of people think to themselves, oh, I just need to get on these channels. And what they haven't done is that step of defining their structure, their business structure. So that's actually where the apprehension is coming from. And when I say structure, all I simply mean is like the defined way that you produce results in your business.
Yeah.
That's all I mean.
It's like, when I think about that, it's almost like the client journey, like understanding first and foremost what your client's problem is. So what is the thing that they're struggling with? What is it that they don't know? What are the issues that they're facing? And then you personally, and this is true for everybody, whether you are selling oils or whether you are trying to teach people how to build a website or you are selling dog food, there is a method that you know to get them a result, to create a solution for this client. And so what you're talking about structure here is that process, taking them from A to B and fleshing that out. And so do you have a process that you walk people through to identify that? Because I think you're right. Like for most of us, it's just mushy in our brains. Like we're doing it, but we haven't identified those pieces of it. We haven't made it an actual structure, an actual system. So how can you tease that out of your own brain and get it where it looks like A plus B plus C equals D? Hey y'all, I just wanted to interrupt this episode real quick to remind you to subscribe to this podcast. I know that emails get lost in your spam folder, so subscribing means my episodes come right to your phone. So go ahead, hit that quick little subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of the Living Fully Alive episodes. Plus, in addition to subscribing to the podcast, make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel as well. I don't know if you know this, but I have been releasing guided meditations every Monday over on YouTube, and you're not going to hear them here. So if you've been wanting to start an easy meditation practice, subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you don't miss out on my short 15-minute guided meditations. All right, now back to this week's episode.
So it seems simple, but like I still to this day have to hire people to help me tease it out.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to this and you want to we call it high ticket handlebars. And it basically just comes down to like, okay, the reason why we call it handlebars is because of that ambiguous kind of, what'd you say, mushy feeling?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so if you're feeling that, like that apprehension, what it comes down to is putting the handlebars around it so your market can get a hold of what it is that you actually do. And there's really something important that I want to say here, because if folks listening are anything like the clients that we work with, oftentimes what I'll hear is, well, here's what my business process or here's what my business structure looks like, but so-and-so does it this way as well. Or I learned this from this guru, or, basically what they're saying is there's nothing distinct or special or important about this way that I do it. And while on the surface it can look that way, the reality is no one does business like you do.
Mm-hmm.
No one thinks the way that you do. No one operates the way that you do. It's like our good friend Allie Fallon said this to me. I'll never forget it. I did her book in a day. And basically what we did was she helps you outline a book in a day.
Yeah.
And
Brilliant.
she's fantastic at it. She's so good at it. But I was feeling this apprehension of like, well, I feel like this book's already been written. And she said, no, it hasn't been written because you haven't written it.
Yeah.
And I thought, damn, that is good.
Yes.
And so I take that same philosophy into building business structure. And if someone wants to do that for themselves, it's really, really simple. And it's basically taking a step back and saying, okay, now there's other parts to this, but the core central component of this is taking a step back and say, what are the 5 steps? 3 to 5 steps. I like 5 because it forces you to really think and dig in.
Yeah.
What are the 5 steps that a potential client needs to take to achieve their desired result that I can help them achieve? That's an important piece of the puzzle. So if on one hand of the spectrum you have desired result, on the other hand of the spectrum you have the client's starting point, you plot out those 5 steps that they need to take to hit their end of the road journey. And then it's looking at, okay, how do I uniquely meet each one of those steps? What does it look like? What does it sound like? What does it feel like? What are we going to name it? What is the methodology behind it? And I'm glossing over a lot of the pieces here just for brevity, but ultimately that's what it comes down to, is identifying first and foremost, and this is what, in my experience, a lot of people will gloss over, is what are those friction points that your ideal client, your ideal prospect are encountering in their journey to the ultimate desire that you can provide them. And then putting names on it. And that's a key part in this. When we get to this process with our clients, this is where I see like, it's like a turtle going back into their shell. People don't want to name it. Yeah. But I had a mentor tell me once, the secret of the universe is in the true naming of things.
That's so
and I
good.
love that so much. I use it all the time. Because when you name it, it becomes yours.
That's what makes it unique. That's what makes it, your process. And you're so freaking good at this. Like, your superpower is naming, creating subject titles for your emails. You're so good at that language piece. And it's fun. It can become a real creative process to name these steps in a way that's what markets them. It's like your 5-step process to XYZ, whatever that could be: better health, better results, more money, whatever the end result is. And, Justin, one of the things I'm thinking about that you did in the process, I don't know if you remember doing this with me, but that part of figuring out, okay, what are my steps? Like, what is it? I was doubting my expertise, what it is that I was good at, because it's so normal to me. I assume that everybody knows it. Like, well, of course, everybody understands how to move past a limiting belief, or everybody knows how to create mindfulness practices and embodiment practices, or whatever it might be. And one of the things that you had me do, and I remember this so powerfully, is you had me send a text message out to several of my closest people, the people that knew me the best, like my friends, some of my clients, my family, my dad. And do you remember what you had me ask them?
Yes, I do. This is the expertise validation. That's what we call it, expertise validation worksheet. And long story short, what you're asking people is, hey, you know me best, and this is usually a mix of colleagues, friends, family. You know me the best. I need you to tell me in an hour or get back to me in an hour. What am I the best at? What is Dan Sullivan calls it the unique ability. What do you see as my unique ability? Something that I'm better at than, 99% of the planet.
Yeah.
And get back to me in an hour. That's a key component.
Yep. It was amazing to get those responses back, because I think you've done this enough that you sort of know how it's going to go. But of course, for me doing it for the first time, I had no idea. And the answers were within a few words, pretty much the same.
Totally.
Like across the board, there were certain things that people knew that I was good at. And it was so validating to see, like, oh my God, yes, this is my superpower. This is my zone of genius. This is what I'm really, really good at. And it helped me create those 5 steps. And I think for anybody listening, do that. Send that text out to people, because once you know and have that validation of, oh, this is my sweet spot, this is what I'm really, really good at, you can kind of design your process around leveraging that strength. Like, for example, I would say I'm not great at systems. Like, nobody's coming to me to say, Mary, can you build a system for my business? But I felt this pressure that I needed to create some kind of a system for the entrepreneurs that I was working with. Well, guess what? That's not why people are coming to me. So why would I waste my time to create some kind of a product or have that be one of the steps when, number one, that's not a need of my clients, but number two, I'm not the person to even deliver that if it was a need. Like, that's not what I'm here for. And so that is hugely, hugely helpful. And I think one of the things that you do really well for your audience is you ask for feedback.
Mm-hmm.
You are constantly like asking people, getting people to fill out surveys. What have you found in the response that you've gotten from the surveys that you send out? Like, why is that so valuable for entrepreneurs to do, is to seek that feedback?
That feedback, I'll never forget my very first business coach ever, Ben Arment, who I just love to this day. Fantastic dude. And, he kind of set the wheels in motion for this, because he's like, hey, listen, this is back when I was working at the church, and I knew in my guts that I was supposed to be doing something different.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know how to get it out. And he said something to me. He goes, listen, I want to take the pressure off you. You are not going to have to go and learn something new to go start this business, because that's what he was helping me do, was start my business. You're not going to have to go start something new. In fact, what it is that you're going to do next, it's been inside of you since the moment you were born. And I was like, now to some people that may sound like, well, duh. But for me, that was one of those moments in life that you don't forget, because it was such a foundational shift. And I had been stressing myself out. Like, I got to go build this thing and do this, learn all these new skills, because that's what it means to be an entrepreneur. And he said, no, listen, just chill. It already is inside of you. It's like the shingles.
Nice.
Anyway, point being, you don't have to go manufacture this thing. And that's why it's so important to ask the people who love you and know you the best, because they're going to be able to see that. And Mary, your results were almost identical in terms of the consistency that the other people that we have do this exercise. It is almost always like these 3 general themes. I don't know why 3, but that just seems to be the number. And it's so relieving to see that. Like, I can tell you what mine are right now: ideate, create, communicate. Those are my 3. I've done this exercise probably 4 times over the past 12 years. And that is what comes back every single time. So I rest everything on top of that. And in terms of getting feedback, when I switched to getting feedback from the market, what I want to know is, okay, now that I have my 3, ideate, create, communicate, what are the applications of those 3 themes that are going to resonate with my market? And that to me is the most important. Obviously, getting those 3 in place are super important. And I could really, bump those out to 5 if I needed to. But for me, it's 3. And then it's saying, okay, now that I know this, what my superpowers are, how do I apply these in such a way that the market has a need for them? Mm-hmm. And I missed this step for a long, long time, which is why probably now I'm a little obsessive about asking and polling and, ensuring that whatever it is that I'm going to create, number one, fulfills me personally.
That's huge.
That's so huge. And I will fight to the death anyone who says otherwise.
Yeah.
Because, like, listen, you could go right now, I could go and learn everything there is to learn about drop shipping and probably make 10 times more money than I'm making right now. but I would be miserable drop
Yeah.
shipping. And besides, you can't get a product over from China to save your life right now. So it wouldn't work anyway. Point being, you have to take those 3 core tenets and then figure out, okay, what does the market need here for what it is that I'm going to produce, for the services that I'm going to generate, for the product that I'm thinking of selling or building.
Yep.
And then applying those two, at that point, it becomes like cheating. We call it validate before you create. So you validate any course, any a product, any sort of messaging. Like if you watch on Twitter, I'm always doing this. If I ask a poll on Twitter, it's almost always to get the messaging of something that I'm creating, get the
Yep.
messaging right.
Yeah.
In fact, I use Twitter in general almost exclusively as market research. Because I want to see, it's such an easy way to crank off content and to watch what people are responding to, not just in polls, but like what are the tweets that are getting traction? What are the tweets that are getting liked and retweeted, which is different than the tweets that are getting comments. Those are 2 different feedback points. And you can apply them differently. So for instance, like a tweet that's going to get high comments, I'm going to almost always look at that as like a subject line, a potential subject line. Because I know, number one, people are reading it and people are like, they're either super on board with what I've just said or they're really irritated with what I've just said.
Yeah.
Which makes a great subject line.
It's great either way.
Yes. So all that to say, like the market research component is just foundational. And when I say I missed out on this, like I'll just throw myself under the bus here and we'll chalk it up to learning, because thankfully, and I'm not just saying this, Mary, you have taught me how to be more gentle with myself, because I used to be really, really strict and hard on myself when I would make a mistake or when I would goof up. And I would realize, like, dude, you were going to be a pastor. You went to school to be a pastor. Like, you knew nothing about business. Just give yourself a break.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back and saying, like, hey, I can be gentle with myself and I can learn from these mistakes, because for the first couple of years I was in business, I was enamored with my own work. And I was my biggest fan. And I hardly made any money in those first couple of years. Now I had a really great launch, but after that launch, you can see it on my revenue. It totally crashed because I started to buy my own press. And I really missed out on, like, do not create things that people don't want to buy. I know it sounds crazy.
Yeah.
It sounds so obvious, but in our entrepreneurship, a lot of us are problem solvers. A lot of us are creative in nature. We love to create. We love to problem solve. We love to fix problems. And so all it really comes down to is stepping back and saying, am I solving the right problems? Am I solving the problems that people need to be solved right now? All the while looking at that through the filter of, in my case, the big 3, and maybe it's people's, up to 5, whatever it is. And that has worked really, really well now that I've gotten those 2 and helped a lot of clients get those 2 kind of foundational components locked and loaded.
Well, and I appreciate you vulnerably sharing that, because I think that is so easily the trap that many of us fall into is, we're kind of in our own world and we get excited about the thing that we're doing and it's fun and it's invigorating and all that thing, but we're often not really slowing down to think, is this actually serving my people in the way they need to be served? And I think with getting feedback, this is literally, I don't know that I've really learned this anywhere other than you. I've got to do it while we were working together, and I've just witnessed how you've done it since then. But going to the people, it's like polling the people, they will tell you. And it's always so fascinating to me. Like when I ask a question to my audience and people respond, oftentimes, especially if it's sort of a, send me a DM kind of situation, what it requires for me is that I slow down. And this is hard because I am a quick start. And I think most entrepreneurs are quick start. We like to get things out quickly. We want to develop and produce in a way that's super fast. But I think what you've taught me is that when we can slow down and really listen, like if I have a poll and say, okay, what do you want to hear from me next? A, B, C, or D? And let's say somebody votes for C. To slow down and actually send that individual a message, a personal message that says, why do you want to learn about this thing next? Or what is it that attracts you about this? Or why is this an issue for you? Or what are you struggling with here? And I mean, I cannot tell you, I have Evernote after Evernote after Evernote of these responses from people, and they're like paragraph long responses. And kind of to what you were saying, it's like that becomes the language that I can meet my audience with that resonates in a powerful way. Like if I'm just trying to shoot from the hip and guess how people might say it, or if I was sitting down to coffee with them, I'm like trying to envision, okay, what would their problem be? I can guarantee you it's probably not actually what's in their head. But if I can get them to tell me and to share with me, and this requires, again, slowing down to personally connect, that is liquid gold. And I love that you said like that becomes a subject line for an email. That becomes the content for the next thing that you create. And to me, and I kind of want to shift into talking about this, is that's where when people say add value, create value, that's what we're talking about. And so one of the things that you have been talking about recently on social media, and I love, again, the way you name things and how you phrase things, you talk about getting a base hit. Now, let me just pause and remind you that a lot of my audience are women. Okay, so if you could tell us, I'm assuming this is a baseball situation here. So if you could like explain, what is it that you mean by base hit and how that connects to this conversation around adding value?
So for just to set the stage, I know next to nothing about sports. I'm not
Okay, good.
I'm not a sports ball guy. I was not at what you would call athletic ever in my entire life. And so sports, I'm not a sports nut. Let's just put it out there. However, the base hit concept, I think for the most part, folks are at least tangentially, how about that?
Oh, nice word.
Aware of, baseball. You have first base, second base, third base, home.
Yeah.
And what I have found in my own career and in working with clients too, oftentimes when we start out, or even if we have something new in our business, we will want to go straight for the kill. We will want to smack the ball so hard it, soars out of the stands, and lands 100 feet outside of the stadium. We just crushed it so hard, and we did such a good job that we just killed it. And what I was finding in my own experience and in our clients' experiences as well is like when you're always going up to bat and you're swinging for the fences every single time, you miss out. Yeah, every now and again you're going to hit the ball, you're going to get a hit, and you're going to crush it. But you're missing out on so much momentum in your business that could be captured otherwise. And so that's why we talk about getting a base hit. And I'll give you an example. This is just recently from one of our clients. So they have an agency, and this can work. We work a lot with service providers, but this can work with really any business. So whatever it is, imagine I'm going to be talking about an agency offer, but imagine your highest priced offer, whatever it is. And so he would go into the calls, and his highest price offer was like a $20K package. And on a given week, outside of kind of COVID-19 crisisville, he would get about a 20% close rate.
Ooh.
So out of every 10 calls, he'd have 2 people who said yes. And so he came in saying, hey, I want to get more calls, because if I'm doing 10 calls, I'll have 2 new clients. If I'm doing 100 calls, I'll have 20 new clients. And so he was coming in saying, hey, which makes sense. I want to get more calls so I can get more clients.
And I'm like, how about just close the rest of those 10 clients?
Yes, that is the base hit philosophy. is to say, cool, there's still going to be room for people to jump on board with that 20K offer, but let's build in some buffers here.
Yeah.
So if someone isn't ready, it's not a right fit, because what it was forcing them to do was selling people into this 20K package that frankly shouldn't have been sold a 20K package.
Yep.
They weren't ready for it. It wasn't the right fit, but that's how he made his money. So we backed the bus up and said, okay, let's get some base hits in here that for someone who is not 20K ready, they might be 1,500 ready. And that's a good base hit. And the likelihood of them going from the $1,500 package up to your 20K package jumps tremendously after you demonstrate value, after you get on base.
Yeah.
And so we work a lot doing that, is saying, let's take a step back, because a lot of folks come to us saying, we want leads. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, most people do not need more leads. Most people need, in some way, shape, or form, to get that base hit philosophy in place. But I mean, sometimes people come in and they just frankly need more leads. But most people can use the leads that they're getting, monetize those, stretch them out, build more revenue into their business by simply providing a few different solutions that eventually lead to, in this case, in this example, the 20K package.
Yeah.
So when we say base hit, that's kind of what we're talking about.
I love that. I mean, it's really about getting them in the door, getting them to say yes, and then being able from there, if it's the appropriate response, to essentially upsell them to something that is a higher ticketed item or higher package or whatever. And I think about this. I mean, I do this in my coaching, and I also do this with essential oils. It's like creating an experience for someone first to demonstrate your value, get them in the door and show them what you can do, and then treat them like a $20,000 client. Even if they're paying $1,500, even if, like, for example, for essential oils, if somebody purchases a $150 kit from me versus the $2,000 kit, I want to treat them exactly the same. Amazing value, because I know that if people love what I have to offer, for example, if I have somebody who does a group coaching experience with me and I want them to become a one-on-one client, I better deliver in that group coaching experience and make them see that working with me will change their life, will drastically improve their relationships to their body, to their spouse, to their work life, whatever it might be. And then you can have that conversation about, what would it look like to work with me one-on-one? Or what would it look like to get even more of what you've been getting with me so far? And I love that, of being willing to just sort of get somebody in the door. And that may be honestly true, what is going to serve them the best right then and there. Like you said, some people may not need that $20,000 package, and being willing to be nimble enough to say, hey, I've got a few options here, and I'm not just a $20,000 person. I've got a couple different ways you can enter into what I have to sell or what I have to give. And I'm curious. So one of the things that I think is even before this step, like before people exchange money, I think another way of saying a base hit is, my dad would call it the quick win. And this would be like offering value for free. So where does that fit into what you teach?
Oh man, this has been like, it depends on what day you ask me. Because here I'll give you, I usually vacillate between two extremes. I go between one extreme and the other. And I feel like my personal entrepreneurial journey is trying to figure out, okay, what does gray look like when I'm used to operating in black and white? And so for me, one of the areas that has been black or white has been around content. Because, I've been in the camp of, no, you should give away your best stuff for free. And I've been in the camp of, no one gets a morsel unless they're paying.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying, recently in the past, let's say 18 months, I've been blending those two worlds. And it comes off of just hard fought, hard won experience. So back when I was in kind of the give your best stuff away for free camp, what I found was this. This, by the way, is why we put an application in front of our email newsletter. Because 99% of businesses have an email newsletter. Join our list, and we'll give you something to join our list. Well, on our list, you have to apply to join the free list.
Mm.
So you don't have to pay anything, but we do have an application. And the application is not difficult. It's like 4 questions. But the reason why we do that is because what I found was I have this list, and you mentioned it, and thank you so much for saying those nice things. And the truth is, that's one of the areas where I put a lot of energy and effort is into our email list. And what I was finding was like, I'm throwing so hard, I'm putting my best content out there in this email. And what was really frustrating to me was people were not getting results. And I couldn't figure it out because I was saying the same stuff for the most part in my email that I was saying to our consulting clients, that I was saying in our online courses. Now it was chopped up differently, it was formatted differently, but the premise, the general instruction, the strategy, it was all there. And people were seeing results as clients, people were seeing results in courses, but I wasn't getting, and I would be asking. I'd say, hey, tell me how this is working for you. How are you implementing this in your business? What changes have you made? Asking, and getting no responses. And that was really frustrating to me. And this is where my mindset around give away your best stuff for free changed. Because the email list for the 10 plus years I've been doing this has always been a free, sign up on my website, whatever, opt in, you're in, right? Like most people.
Yeah.
So we put this application in. And you don't have to pay anything. It's just, like I said, a 4 or 5 question application that says, who are you? What's your business about? What do you want to gain from this newsletter? That kind of stuff. And the opt-in rates plummeted. I mean, they just bottomed out. And to give you an idea, like for the first, I would say for the first 3 or 4 years of growing my list, we grew it to about 25,000 names. Wasn't super aggressive with it, but definitely put energy and attention to it. And that dropped, almost like 99%.
Wow.
When we put the application in place. But, and this is the key. This is where I start to, move more into the gray area. Because I'm not charging people for the email newsletter list. There's other places that we do that. But there is friction. There's buy-in that's required for you to join the list now. And as that friction has been introduced, as that layering has been introduced, the open rates have gone up something like 100%.
Wow. So
my open rates used to be, they would hover around 10%. Now we're averaging around 20%. The feedback, what I hear now is, hey, I've been on your list. I listened to your podcast. How do we work together?
Yep.
So I hear that almost all the time now when we start getting into an engagement with somebody. And now, if I'm not saying go out and put your email list under an application. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying, when we talk about content and how to address content and how to produce content, to me, it's always really important for a client to have a central place that they're communicating. James Altucher calls it the spoke and wheel. The spoke and wheel. I don't think he came up with that, but that's where I heard it. And having a central place that you own, and all of your efforts go into creating the best content that you can possibly create. And then everything else is an offshoot of that. So like 90% of my tweets are sentences from my emails. Most of my Facebook posts either come from emails or they go the reverse. So I'll do a Facebook post and let's say it's a paragraph. And if it hits, I'll turn that paragraph into an email and send it out. But everything for me is centered around the email list, providing as much value as I can, but also making sure that there's some skin in the game when it comes to people joining the list. And I don't know that I'll ever go back to having it where it's just, hey, everyone, come one, come all.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah, go
ahead.
ahead.
No, you go. No, you go.
I don't care about numbers at this point. I don't.
Yeah.
I care about engagement and bumping up that open rate. Like, it's vulnerable to me to tell people my open rates. I know that sounds silly, but for those who know, like some people listening, they're gonna resonate with that. But to see the drastic improvement is all the proof I need that this is the approach that I want to follow.
Yeah.
And so whether it's email or whether it's Instagram or whether it's YouTube or Facebook or Twitter or whatever, having that centralized component and putting your best foot forward, but also having like a buy-in component. And I don't know that I figured that out anywhere else than the email list, which is why I do it. So I don't know if that answers the question, but that's kind of where my head's at when you ask that.
No, it's so helpful. And it's funny because I think you and I resonate on this a lot, is just the creating those relationships. And I remember at one point I can't remember exactly how it went, but you were basically kicking people out of your email list.
Oh yeah.
It was like, if you don't respond, you're out,
Yeah.
And I just thought that's such a masculine energy. I loved it. I was like, yes, get it. And I thought it's so brilliant because you have to, as the audience, go, do I actually want this? Or am I okay with him rejecting me, essentially? And it's a re-opt-in. I have to sign up again. And that's going to mean that I'm going to actually listen to you. I really want to be there. And you've been able to whittle it down to the people who are actually listening, who are participating, who are engaging.
Yes.
And to me, 100 of those people versus 10,000 of people who aren't listening, I would rather take those 100 any day. And I think that's what you're doing. And I think that it isn't about the numbers. It's about the engagement, which to me is how you create success, is by engagement. And so I want to shift, because we only have a few minutes left, and I want to shift to present day, COVID-19. Here we are. Everybody's going online, service-based businesses, brick and mortar, everything is shifting. And I would love to know from you and what you're seeing and what your clients are asking for. What are some of your top tips right now for people who are wanting to not just survive what's happening right now, but actually thrive during this time, which we're seeing a lot of industries doing, we're seeing a lot of businesses do? What would be some of your top takeaways? I don't know, 3 or 4 that you would say, this is what you should be focusing on right now if you own a business or an entrepreneur?
Yeah, this is super important. I mean, I would say that this is true no matter what, but certainly right now, in the stage of the game that everybody's in, there's a couple different areas that, I would have you look at. If I was sitting across the table from you right now, this is what I would tell you. I would say, number one, really take a look at, we call it reducing your economic footprint. And I use that language intentionally because what I don't want people to do is to slash and cut unnecessarily. And so what we do is basically take you could take your credit card statement, your debit card statement, whatever, look at your expenses that you go through on a monthly basis and put them in 3 categories. One category is must have, next category is nice to have, third category is need to cut. And think about a human body. You have bone, muscle, fat. If you cut bone, it's really painful.
Yeah.
If you've ever had surgery and they had to cut bone, you know that that's some of the most painful experiences that you can go through is bone pain. We don't want to cut those expenses if at all possible. Those are your must-have expenses. So these are typically going to be like infrastructure expenses. These are going to be hosting expenses for your website, those types of things. Next category is nice to have. That's going to be your muscle. So if you go into surgery and they cut muscle, they don't want to, but if they do, okay, it can grow back. Yeah, it's going to hurt like hell in the meantime, but it'll grow back. That's your nice to have expenses. They're exactly what it sounds, nice to have. Or if you need to cut them, you can. It's not going to be fun, but you can cut them. Then you have need to cut. That's your fat. I don't know, single person watching, myself included, that wouldn't like to cut a few pounds of fat out. And your business expenses work the exact same way. And the trick is like doing this on a consistent basis. So and having a spreadsheet. So if you're going to be lean one month and you need to cut some expenses, You don't have to fret. You don't have to worry. It's already been done. Go to that list. You look at your need to cut and you start cutting. Then if that still doesn't do the trick, you move to your nice to have and you start cutting. And the goal is to hopefully keep that need to have list nice and safe and clean and isolated. So that's one thing. Number two is protect your, what are we telling people? Protect your existing revenue streams. And this is more proactive, where if you work with clients, certainly being open and honest with them. And if they are in a spot where they need help, you work with them, because it's 10 times more expensive to go find a new client than it is to keep the ones you already have. So that might mean offering a discount on your services for a month. That might mean doing a prepay. Like, one of my favorite things to do in general, but certainly now, is to do a 90-day prepay. So you go to your list, and you could do this with clients, customers, whatever. There's a restaurant here in town in Des Moines that does this with doing this with gift cards right now. So they're saying buy 4 $20 gift cards. We'll give you the 5th one for free. It's genius. It's brilliant, because it gets them cash in the door. And, it forces you to come back.
Totally.
To spend it. And so doing that with your services, offering discounts to your clients to prepay, it protects your cash flow, and it also is a huge win for your clients. The other thing too, and I've just started looking at this more recent, and I don't know if we said this while the mics were on or off, but, start really looking at, how do I adapt my offer in the face of this?
Yeah.
Because this crisis, unfortunately, the implications of it, I think, are going to be around for some time. This isn't going to be one quick dip and we're out. We're going to be dealing with this for quite some time. And so adapting your offer, what was the range, Mary? 2 years?
Yeah, I've been hearing about 2 years until it's kind of leveled back.
So whatever your offer looks like now, really engineering it for the long haul, for the next 2 years. And I know that depending on who you are, they may sound like a long time. They may not sound like a long time at all. But really being comfortable not only with what you're delivering, but how you're delivering it. So do you have a good home office setup? Are you able to negotiate? One of our clients, we just negotiated him out of a 3-year lease. He doesn't need it anymore. So his entire workforce is working from home now. So do you have a good work from home setup? Are you really invested in a nice environment, either at your house or eventually a co-working spot, where you can certainly have an offer that works for you, and also taking a look at your doggone team members? My goodness, myself included, like, I feel like I got a jump start on this, because 2019 for me was like my COVID-19 year. It was just gnarly. It was brutal. Everything that could go wrong in the business went wrong for me in 2018 and the beginning part of 2019. So I had to restructure everything. But one of the things I learned was I was way, way, way too heavy in team members, in contractors, in service providers, and taking the painful steps of saying, what are my must-have, need to have, nice to have, need to cut? Even when it comes to people, it's very, very painful, but you got to do it to protect your business. And then the other thing too is, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this without sounding, without being kind of self-interested, but like marketing right now, you will not find cheaper ad costs than you'll find right now.
Yep.
They're just so dirt cheap, because what happened was everybody pulled their marketing budget. This is why I say reduce your economic footprint. It just puts your mind in a different space. Then slash everything. If you can stay the course and put even just a small amount towards your marketing, you'll be ahead of the pack, because everyone's cutting marketing. What happens in supply and demand? If demand goes down, supply goes up. There's tons of supply out there right now. And you can get clicks for cheap. You can get leads for cheap. You can get conversions for cheap right now. So if you can, and if you're in a position, put keep your marketing budget the same. If you don't have a marketing budget, put, a small amount, let's say $5 a day towards marketing your business, getting the word out there. And just as an aside, anecdotally too, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, what's working right now from a marketing perspective is awareness, not necessarily conversions. So like our conversion campaigns are kind of taking a bath right now, but visibility, brand awareness, even engagement campaigns are killing it because everybody's on their freaking computers all the time.
Yeah. Looking for things to do to
Look for things
distract
to do.
themselves. Yeah. Oh, that's so good. And it's just helpful to have some of those areas of focus. And I know that if you follow Justin, he will, share more of these ideas for service-based providers and just brilliant tips all the time. So where can people find you if they want to work with you, or if they just want to, siphon off some of your genius? Where's the best place for them to get connected with you?
I would say it's probably the email list, which you can go to justinwise.net, and the application's right there, big and bad.
Awesome. And we'll link to all of that. And then I got to ask you, what is your favorite social media platform? Like if people want to dial into Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, where should they go?
Twitter is my first love.
Okay. I'm not even on Twitter. I got to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely an acquired taste, but just so everybody knows too, I'm in this game. I did Instagram live yesterday and 2 people showed up.
Oh, dude, I said it about 4 people when I do live. I'm like, whoop, whoop.
So I'm trying out new platforms, but if I have a go-to, if I had to pick one to use forever, it would be Twitter for sure.
Okay, cool. And last question before we wrap up, how would you define success?
Success is doing what you want to do with who you want to do it, when you want to do it, for the amount that you want to do it for.
Nice. Awesome.
Warren Buffett said it much better than I did, but he's like, somebody asked him, why do you want to be rich? He goes, because then I can do what I want, when I want, with who I want. That's how he said it.
I love it. It's so true. I would definitely agree to that for sure. That sense of freedom is central when I think about success. Well, y'all, like I said, this was going to be an amazing conversation. You did not disappoint. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Justin. You're amazing. Pleasure. And y'all, I'm going to see you next week for our 4th and final episode for this month's topic of success. Make sure to share this with a friend, especially if you are in business and you know other people who are questioning, are in doubt, are freaking out, and need some of what Justin just shared with us. Make sure to send the link to them, and I will see y'all next week. Bye. Hey y'all, thanks so much for listening to today's episode. I hope you got some amazing nuggets to take home and start implementing into your life. And if you're looking for the show notes and links, head on over to maryhyatt.com/show. And if you loved it, why not bring your girlfriends along this journey of becoming fully alive with you? Just give a quick share of this episode to your social channels and enjoy those debriefing convos with your besties. Thanks again, and I can't wait to connect with you next week.